Today, we're talking to Rob Duffy, CTO at HealthEdge, about what CTOs are saying about AI behind closed doors. You're listening to Joel Beasley, Modern CTO.
I'm a big fan of the conversations behind the scenes. I like behind the scenes content when it comes to movie. And when Josh pitched this to me, he's like, hey, we're going to have an AI conversation about the conversation CTOs are having about AIs behind closed doors. I said, yes, sign me up. I want to do that with Rob. So I'm going to leave it to you because I'm not actively a CTO. I was previously, but for the past 7 years, I've just been running the podcast, and that's,
nice.
Yeah. So what's happening? Give me the inside scoop.
What's happening? I'll give you the inside scoop. I went to a conference a couple of months back, and it was a healthcare technology conference, and there was a lot of presentations. And as you can imagine, a lot of presentations on AI. And the remarkable thing about that conference is I could have created a little time machine and teleported you to that conference last year and teleported you to the conference this year and challenged you to tell the difference between the demos and the presentations and the talk tracks and the narratives between those 2 years. And I think that even though the pace of AI development is incredible and moving very, very quickly, the adoption and the use cases that people are talking about and the demos that people are giving isn't keeping up with the same pace. And I think that's largely because everyone now has demo fatigue, and everyone has seen all the demos and they've seen all the flashy use cases. But it's people are struggling to take that flashy demo and flashy use case and actually put it into production environments and scale it and get it into a system that's delivering real ROI. And that is what everyone is talking about right now, is we see the potential, we've seen the demos, but what are the actual real world hard ROI use cases that we're able to bring to production? And a lot of us are thinking about that, and a lot of us are talking about that. And I think one of the most interesting things that I've started having a conversation with my leadership team about, and my board and our investors, is that the migration of work from human cognition to AI and agentic systems is probably about as large as a cloud migration would be in terms of moving things from legacy on-premise infrastructure to cloud infrastructure. But if you think about those two projects inside any organization, the cloud migration has a project management office. It has a cloud center of excellence. You create a cloud factory. You put things in these waves. You construct a wave plan. There's the books and blogs and AWS has guidance on this well-architected framework, and it has this method of assessing what you're going to do with all your on-premise infrastructure. You have these 7 Rs, and it's like rehost, refactor, replatform, etc. And there's this whole big motion around it, and everyone knows how to do that by now because most of us have participated in one, if not more than one, cloud migration at this point in our careers. And we sort of know how to do that. But then you look at how people are driving the migration of work to AI and agentic systems, and there's none of that. There is none of the process and the systems and the tools to look at work the way that you have tools to look at on-premise and catalog all the infrastructure. And I think that's why we're seeing lots of demos, but not much in the way of hard migrations and hard ROIs to these hard migrations to AI and agentic systems. And what we're thinking about and we're putting in place now is that kind of motion and that kind of structure around the project, because it really is as large. When you think about the impact it can have to your organization, it is as large an ROI as a cloud migration might be.
Wow. Yeah, as you're saying that, I'm thinking of about 15 years ago, I built this real estate type software. We integrated it. It only went into companies with over 1,000 agents, so big software. And when we first started going around and talking to these companies, it was so fascinating to me because I was just a software engineer who had built something, right? That the only thing they really focused on, 90% of the conversation was on implementation, customer service, rolling out, behavior change. And I was blown away by it. I was we built it. It's there. We just swapped the data. We're good. But to get the people to change and do this new behavior turns out to be one of the most challenging things. So we ended up building that company out largely around the implementation and the transition of that project.
It is one of the most hard, it is the hardest things in engineering leadership is changing your team and changing your culture and changing the way work is structured, and moving stuff away from humans and into AI and agentic systems is probably one of the largest scale changes that we're going to have to levy on the team in the next century. And we need to focus on that and have tools and systems and processes on how to do that. And I think that, you asked what the conversation behind closed doors is like. That is the behind the scenes conversation. Like, how do we move this organization forward? And in this case, there is a really strong headwind, which is people are terrified. They're worried that if they do move some of their work over to an AI and agentic system, that means they don't have a job anymore. So
for some of them, that's true.
Yeah,
it is. But it was that way with SaaS software. We would go into teams that had 100 people in the team, and we would leave after implementation. They have 10 people that learned how to use the new tool that did the work of 100 people. I mean, this isn't new. This has been going on for a long time.
I know. It's just that tech has always been on the other side of that equation, right? Like, if you think about software and software developers, it's always been the software developers who are installing software as a service, or the software developers who are creating a new tool that's going to automate things, and and then the engineering teams are the ones that are building and creating, and not the ones that are always seeing the benefits from automation and optimization. And then now they're in this position of like, well, hold on, if like 10, 20, 30% of my work goes away to an AI and agentic system, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for my career? What does that mean for software development? And, we're strongly of the opinion that what it means is that a lot of the work that software engineers are doing is going to be, supervising AI and agentic systems. We still need software engineers, and we still need people to review the code that comes out of these tools, and we need people to think about architecture and design, and we need people to get really, really great at prompt engineering and creating tools and creating MCP, tools, and that's the work. The work is going to shift, and we're going to see the emergence of these AI-enabled developers or agentically enabled developers, and I think those are the teams that are going to win, are the teams that can make that shift quickly.
Well, my good friend of mine, we programmed, 20 years ago, and we still keep up. We were just having this conversation the other day about these, you don't want to say 10x developer, but basically these, using these technologies correctly. And so we started both playing with them, just side projects and just hanging out. Hey, I did this, check it out. Hey, I did this. How did you do that? We send each other videos and stuff. We've been doing that the past 2 or 3 months now. And I'll tell you, I have hard data on it now. A very specific process I would go through that would take me 8 weeks and about $7,000 and involve roughly 3 different freelancers. So 8 weeks, $7,000, 3 different freelancers. I was able to achieve in about 3 hours. So that's my compression that I'm looking at, because for me, that's real. That is real, hands-on, and it involved just me working with an AI. And so I said, okay, this is happening. It is here today. And it did it in my example project that I did. It did it with better than I'm a tough person. I have really high expectations. Okay, like the bar is high, and it met them. I was like, it had just the perfect amount of incompetence to where I was like, I can see this is good. This is really good. Yeah.
And we're seeing that, we are seeing those proof of concepts and those point demos, and we're seeing things that can be, automated and produced in, 5 minutes where it used to take 2 sprints. Like we just recently had internally we have to keep up with regulatory updates. How that works is the CMS, Center for Medicaid Services, updates their regulatory website. We read it, and then a subject matter expert has to kind of codify what that means, and then the subject matter expert delivers a Visio chart showing the logic graph of that update to an engineering team, and then the engineering team has to write that, and it takes them, a sprint or a couple of sprints depending on the complexity. We're now going straight from some of those updates and some of those Visio charts straight to code, fully tested with full test automation based on some of our other regulatory edits. And We're doing that in, an hour, and then, plus some review time, with the review time baked in. And that's incredible. Like, you're taking something that used to take 2 sprints or 1 or 2 sprints and turning it into, a 1 hour, 2 hour review task. Like, this is really where we're going to get a huge amount of lift. I think the other thing that we're noticing is that you can get AI, or you can get generative AI tools or an agent to write really, really good unit tests. And then you can take those unit tests and get it to write some code to make those tests pass. The thing that we're seeing is that getting an LLM to write really, really good unit tests relies on there being really, really good acceptance criteria and really, really good user stories. And in a consistent format and in a way that LLM can interpret it and then create those unit tests. Unfortunately, not every development team is blessed with perfect user stories and perfect acceptance criteria. But an LLM can create really, really good user stories and really, really good acceptance criteria, in conjunction with a product manager, and can have it in a consistent template that can then be consumed downstream. Then you see the upstream problem is that, well, getting an LLM to produce really good user stories and really good acceptance criteria is that they need a really good product requirements document and really good requirements. And again, not every development team is blessed with perfect requirements and perfect PRDs. However, you can get an LLM to write that, and you can get an LLM to provide it in a consistent way that it can then be consumed downstream by the user story and acceptance criteria writing LLM that can then be consumed by the test automation LLM that can then be consumed by the code writing, LLM or agent. So what we're actually seeing is that, point solutions, you can get really good demos in, right? Like, you can show the agentic system or the LLM writing automated unit tests for the user story. But to scale it, you actually have to embed this AI and these agents all the way along the software development lifecycle, right from the point of ideation all the way through to the point of testing. And when you do that, that's when you get scale, and that's when you get real ROI. And that was a discovery we had on one of our pilot programs that we ran a couple of months ago. And the regulatory example that I just gave you is a perfect example of that, because it is using LLMs upstream to then hand off information to downstream LLMs in a format that they can understand. And that's delivering, that 1 day or 1 hour from 2 sprints worth of work.
And these materials, like these frameworks for understanding and implementing this, are you creating internal versions of it as you go and sharing it with your peers, or is McKinsey creating stuff, or Deloitte?
No, we have a largely internal grassroots LLM adoption process. And, it started with this pilot, 53 users. We got onto Claude by Anthropic. And use their Claude for Business offering. And, we put all those people in a channel. We had weekly leaderboards. We had showbacks on data. We created some gamification. One of the things that I did was offer a jar of spicy pickles to a person who produced the best tools, right? So it was a fun, kind of convivial atmosphere, but we put in a huge amount of energy to it. And, we got people sharing and showing what they had completed and showing what they'd done using the tool. And then that provides this sort of collective intelligence. It sparks other people's imagination. Claude has a great project facility where you can sort of create almost like a mini RAG with its project knowledge, and then a mini system prompt with the project instructions. So that then provided a path to production, right? Like, you have a user who can go in, somewhat motivated by the chance to win a jar of spicy pickles, and they create a project. They put in their information. Then they share it and show other users that, and we have little videos and recording sessions. So you have to put in that much energy and that much momentum to get people really thinking about how can this be injected in my everyday, and how can I personally use it, and how can I share it. And now we've got AI champions on every team. We give them some swag, and they are the people who are sort of going into those teams, listening for all the updates from all the other teams and sharing that knowledge. And it's a real grassroots movement for us. And for me, I want us to be the most AI native and AI literate company in all of healthcare technology. And I don't think we can do that by relying on external partners to lead that transformation. We have to be the change.
It has to be baked into the culture because all the small details matter in the time of execution. Like in the runtime environment of your day-to-day job, you need people that understand what is possible, what the limitations are, all of that. Congratulations on that. So would you recommend this process of getting a bunch of different, were they, let's talk about these 53 users, different people from different teams? Like what was it? How did you pick these people?
We picked 5 teams, so cross-functional teams, right? Product managers, subject matter experts, QA folks, developers, managers. We created the team captains. We had a kickoff. So we basically, the premise of the pilot was, if we go all in on AI, how far can we get? And we mapped the whole software development lifecycle and the whole process. And again, this goes back to my earlier comment around we really need to understand work before we can understand how work can be migrated to AI and agentic systems. We mapped the whole software development lifecycle, identified every step, every handoff, like how many times teams were doing that, how long it took, and then could that be offloaded to an AI and agentic system, and then identified a proof of concept, AI prompt in the Claude web UI, and then thought about how can we extend that. So like the teams were picked because we wanted end-to-end cross-functional reimagination of the software development lifecycle. And that we ended up with 53 people in there, and the energy around it was incredible. It was, as soon as you give people permission to just go end to end and tear up everything that they thought they were doing, and then just point an LLM at it instead, you get huge results out of it.
Yeah, and so many companies, it's all company culture, right? A lot of them pull back, no shadow IT, but you found these constraints that they could have fun within and then let them kind of do their thing. Now, curious, did any custom softwares come from that? Like if you've got 53 people all looking at workflows and processes, identifying what's repetitive, how did you organize all that information into here's the punch list. We've got 800 things we could do, but these top 80 things are the ones that'll create the most benefit for the time investment. How did you manage all of that knowledge coming out?
So we left that up to the teams. I mean, we could have put in big program management around it. And, as we start to scale that pilot out, we probably will put some kind of structure around the project and program management. But we basically had a kickoff. We said, this is what we want you to do. Here are the constraints. Here are the parameters. Here's some of the tools that we want you to use. Here's how we want you to approach this. And here's the commitments that we want you to make around going all in on this and really helping share and helping, communicate when you have success. And then we let the teams organize around their particular part of the software development lifecycle. And, there's two modes that we observed. The first is experimenting and just I'm going to pull up Claude, I'm going to upload a source file into the web UI, which is probably not how you'd ever do anything in production. And then I'm going to ask it a couple of questions and see what I can do, right? What is the art of the possible here? Here's a Visio file. Is it possible to get from this Visio file to code? I don't know. Let's try it, right? So there's this experimenting thing. And you have to get people to working in that mode. But then there's this weaponizing, we call it weaponizing of prompts, where you turn them from this experimental chat into a system prompt. And, in that system prompt, it has things control over the facts must come from the source file. It has to follow this. You put in all of your restrictions and constraints, and you take that experimentation mode into the creation of something that can be used as a tool by other teams, and then you put that into Claude as the project instructions. We share that tool. People hand it out to others, other people use it, and then after that we take that and we put it into our own internal agentic system that's something that we've developed on top of AWS Bedrock. So there's this path from low cost experimentation, which gives people the freedom to be completely creative, and it's inside a tool that you can't over engineer because it's literally a chat interface with the ability to upload some files. So that gives them the ability to experiment. That gives them the freedom to really kind of let their imagination run and try things. And then you have a very, very clear path to, okay, let me put this into a tool that I can share with other people. And if they're getting, getting the advantages that I'm getting out of it, then we can talk about how to get from that tool into something that's running in production and being used by the entire software development lifecycle. So.
That is awesome. So you kind of designed that as a document, essentially explaining this process, and then just let them run with it and figure it out. So if somebody has something, let's say one of the teams, give me something real. Let's use that Visio example. They find something and they're like, okay, it can do that. We can get from, the what was that word that you used? The changes from the medical company or whatever.
Yeah, the regulatory changes.
Sorry, there we go. Got it. Regulatory changes all the way through to production. Like how did that actually roll out?
So we take that, you take the early prompts, which was literally upload a Visio document into the Claude web interface. And then start asking a bunch of questions around it. And then I think that, after that, they uploaded to a source file example to say like, this is what it should look like. And they got to a good place. So you take that, then they created the tool, which is, like a project as a tool, which has some system prompt information in the project instructions, and then some reference files uploaded to the project knowledge. And then they shared that tool with a bunch of, in our channel, we had a chat channel, shared that tool with the rest of the team. The rest of the team started to use it. We tweaked the system prompt a little bit, tweaked the knowledge, asked it to, make sure that it complied with our coding standards, et cetera. And then got to a good place where we felt like this is good. And by the way, if you share a tool and you get 2 other people to use it, guess what you get? Jar of pickles. So surprising motivational tactic.
I would be donating them. I would definitely be donating them.
So then you have that tool, you have your jar of pickles, and
can they be garlic pickles? Because I'm down if it's some garlic pickles.
You don't like spicy pickles?
I don't know, man. That's a whole other podcast, I think.
So then we basically have an AI and ML platform tool. We call them the work transformation team because we think about this as work transformation. And what they do is then they take that system prompt that's inside the Claude tool and turn that into a tool that you can basically take Visio charts and it will produce, GitHub pull requests that a human can then go and review based on that upload. So that kind of like path to early experimentation, or path from early experimentation through to a shareable, reusable tool through to production is super critical, because you stop people trying to create the production system and over-engineering it before they've even proven that they can get value out of this use case and this flow. And then when they do get value out of it, they go to the workforce transformation team and they say, here's the value I got from it. This is a really great thing for you to like turn into a production tool and a production system. And that work transformation team, who are a bunch of AI and ML experts and our AI platform team, create the most high priority use cases that are going to get the largest amount of ROI for us.
Okay, so the work transformation team is interfacing and they're a part of this group of 53. This group of 53, they're kind of figuring out stuff and having a lot of freedom and flexibility. Then once they feel like, oh, we got something, then they come to work transformation team and like, hey, this is what we've got. Then they're making sure everything's aligned from technology, security, all of that. And they turn it into this final endpoint that people can use in real world scenarios at the company. Okay, that's the flow.
And they figure out like, what is the interface to it? Is the interface like something running on top of GitHub? Is the interface a command line interface? Is it going to be used by business people? Does it need to upload user stories to Jira? Does it need to interface with, any of other internal systems? So they figure out the work of taking that thing that probably needs a lot of copy and paste, and like prompting and turning it into a tool that's integrated with the rest of the system. And that team is responsible for the care and feeding of that tool too. So, you get model drift, you get model updates. Sometimes a prompt that was working really well stops working. And that team is responsible for monitoring the output and then continuously refining it. Also monitoring usage. So when they monitor usage, we know just from the intake process, how many hours did this save? And when you monitor the usage, you can just multiply the number of times the tool is being used by the number of hours that it's saved, right? So now you have some really cool metrics on like what is the ROI of individual tools and what is the collective ROI of our agents that we are creating. And our long-term goal, and when I say long-term, I mean, 6 to 9 months, is to leverage the same platform that we have built internally for our internal users for our customers. So our customers can go through the same process, the workforce, the workforce transformation lab. We can monitor their workflow, or at least, document their workflow, identify areas where agents could do the work, proof of concept them, go through the experimentation phase, and then move them into production. And our long-term goal is for those two use cases, external customers on top of our platform and internal customers on top of the platform, to be indistinguishable from a technology perspective.
Okay, this is great. So that's what I was thinking. I was like, why don't, like, the next logical progression is for this to spin out into some consultancy that helps people do this, but tell me what HealthEdge does. Are you already consultants or what?
So HealthEdge is a software as a service company for health insurance payers. Now we say, health insurance payers because it's not always a health insurance company. And what we do is we provide three core pieces of capability. So Health Rules Payer is our primary product, and that is a core administrative processing system. So when you go to a provider in the United States, and a provider can be, a clinician or some physical therapy or a doctor, a GP, whatever, that provider packages up all of the services and consumables that you received during that visit into an electronic medical record. And then that electronic medical record gets priced and coded and sent as a claim through an intermediary called a clearinghouse to the health insurance company. And then the health insurance company has to adjudicate that claim, i.e. figure out what portion you need to pay, what portion is going to send to the provider for payment, and sends you an explanation of benefits. And the way that they do that is by codifying all of the rules and contractual obligations and pricing and rate cards that they have with all of the providers, codifying that into a rules engine. And that's what we run. Health Rules Payer is effectively a rules engine that takes all of the provider contracts, all of the plan documents, and then allows insurance companies, health insurance companies or health insurance payers, to adjudicate that claim as it comes in electronically and do that in an automated fashion very, very quickly, and enable those claims to obviously be paid quickly, and then the insured person to get their explanation of benefits quickly. And, we get up to high watermark is like 95% auto adjudication of those claims. And then we have the system that the manual claims processors will go in and manually adjudicate ones that didn't get through the auto adjudication process. We have another product, which is a pricing and editing product. And pricing and editing is sometimes the providers incorrectly price or incorrectly code things that are sent to the insurance company. And we have a pricing and editing or payment integrity product called Source, which goes in and corrects the claims, it's called editing, edits the claim. And then we have a care management product called Guiding Care, and a member engagement product called WellFrame. So we basically help health insurance companies stop focusing on technology and payments and try and focus more on the consumer and try and deliver that sort of like Amazon level of consumer experience to their insured population. And we do that by providing best in class, AI enabled platforms that they can build their business on top of.
So do you think this will spin out, or do you think it'll just become a different part of your offering?
I think the biggest part of, or the biggest cost in claims processing is manual adjudication. So if you imagine a claim comes in, it can't, the rules engine that we have and the health rules language and the health rules payer platform can't adjudicate that claim for some reason. A human has to go in and open that claim, look at all the information, look at all the stuff that's been submitted, and go through a standard operating procedure that the health insurance companies write. And there's thousands of these SOPs and hundreds of reasons why claims penned. And they have to manually go in and look at this and open up this, copy this field from here, put it in here, open up this other system. And it can be like a 20 or 30 page document describing this stepwise SOP. And one of the biggest things that we can do with AI, with AI and agentic systems is remove the burden on the human for finding and collating that information from all these different systems and putting that information right in front of them and allow them to execute that SOP without having to go to 10 or 20 or 30 different systems. And that means they'll do it more accurately. They'll deliver faster claim processing, lower the cost structure of the insurance companies. And when we can provide faster claim processing and, lower the cost structure of the insurance companies, then, the healthcare and the servicing of health to people gets cheaper and better too.
So you're talking about, when you describe this whole, framework for how you do these transformations within your own company, you're talking about taking that, packaging up, and then using it specifically to help with that 5% at the insurance, the customers you already have. So you're going to go to them and say, hey, we've got this whole life cycle that we can run on this part of your business, and execute. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, totally. 100%.
That's so cool, man. Because that's such a specific, measurable, you already have the proof that you're able to do it within, you already understand the problem set, you already are vendors, you're in the companies, and I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and we've also learned how to do care and feeding of these systems, right? And do it safely, securely, in a compliant way, in a way that can, make sure that we're not, increasing the risk of leveraging AI. So the fact that we're sort of scratching our own itch first and, dealing with our internal systems and building that platform, and then once we feel confident about doing it ourselves and we have a good process and we have a good workflow, turning that, out onto our customers, I think is the right approach. I think if we did it. But
then it's still so narrow because the whole world's going to need this. It's like a CMS back in the day. Like everyone's rebuilding WordPress from scratch, because no WordPress exists. Then a couple will come out, and you just hope you're not Joomla. I mean,
that's right, exactly. But that's like a massively real fear for me, right? Like as a CTO, like we are pretty advanced in terms of trying to get AI and agentic systems up and running and deliver some productivity to our workforce and to our customers. And to do that, I need to build things. And, every time there's an update from Claude or, it's the AWS Web Summit in New York next week. And I'm terrified that what's going to happen is a bunch of stuff that I've invested in is just being built by the AI platforms. And we it's like every investment decision and every time we look at building a piece of technology, in the back of my mind, the evaluation criteria is, do I think this is on anyone, like Claude's roadmap or AWS's roadmap already? And will it be released in the next 3 to 6 months? In which case we should probably just wait. It's a really dynamic and rapidly changing environment, which is providing some very interesting prioritization and discussions around what we should build versus just wait for,
Yeah, I like the idea though, because a similar concept came up to us a couple months ago where we were looking at the companies that are in healthcare and insurance. They have much more monitoring over their employees as far as their security systems and tracking movements and all of that. And I was like, what if we just feed all this data into a central location so that we can figure out what the repetitive tasks are and then stack rank them by time savings? And we were looking at that, but that was just kind of like yes, someone's out there is going to do it and they're going to do it really well. And they're going to have way more knowledge than we have of this specific problem set. But I really like what you did, where you didn't go build some technology that didn't exist yet. You just gave permission to people, let them figure stuff out. And then now they're bought and sold in, which is that behavior part, which is the hardest part.
Yeah, exactly. And they're asking for new tools and they're asking for different things. And that's what you want, this energy. You just need to put enough momentum into the flywheel of change for it to start to become self-directed. And it does kind of grow up. It graduates out of the need for constant attention after a while, and it starts to become like your community leaders emerge and you sort of elevate them. And then it gets to the point where it becomes a kind of self-sustaining initiative.
So how does it work outside of your company? What are like just general employee count for technology? And you said you took 53 of these people. What's your total? What was that, like 10% of your
it's about
workforce?
We got about 1,200 people all said and done in R&D. So
okay. So that's a very small percentage then.
A very small percentage. Now we have to scale it. And we have to break this, we have to take that pilot group and figure out how are we going to get that level of passion and fire out of a much larger organization. And, we think about maybe we just run a sequence of 50 people pilots, right? But we don't do it for 4 weeks, we do it for 2 weeks. And we do 3 in parallel and, we churn through this And eventually you'll reach a tipping point. You don't have to do it with 100%, you don't have to do it with 100% of people. Or do we just in tranches, bring people on and get them through the workflow and the process and sort of build their fire and their passion for it and like make them take ownership of stuff. It's a very interesting problem because going from 53 highly engaged people, all desirous of a jar of spicy pickles, to 1,000 people is difficult. Like if you just open the floodgates, what you'll find is, 50% of the people that come through those floodgates won't have, any fire or any passion, and they'll just have been given another tool, right? So you have to really think through like what is this scaling of a pilot where you've turned a bunch of people into converts and they are now all in on AI and in a very high touch way, and how do you scale that across the organization?
So let's say I worked at your company, say as a software engineer, and I wanted my other buddy that works at, I don't know, Uber is using Cursor, and I just have my regular IDE. And I want to use Cursor and I want to use an LLM. Can I just do that? Or do you put out as like a CTO, like a list of approved services that they could use so they could plug their code editors into these LLMs, or like, how does that work there?
So we work in healthcare, which is obviously a very regulated industry, and it deals with pretty sensitive information, right? Like we have a custodial duty for our, customers' health information, and so that in that sort of in that kind of like environment, we have to think very, very carefully about security, regulatory, privacy. We have to make sure that anything we're doing from an AI perspective is safe. We think about ethics, we think about biases and models, we think about how we're going to get our data back. Where is our data going to go? Is it going to get trained or is it going to get used to train an LLM? Is there a potential leak? So we have a governing team, and anytime we want to use a tool, so if you're a developer on our team, you said, I want to use Cursor, it would go through that governing team. We would look at the company, we'd look at what they're doing. We'd ask them for, a whole bunch of security information and a whole bunch of legal information. And we go through a vetting process, a fairly deep and intensive vetting process for any time we want to use a new tool or partner with a new company. And, part of it sometimes is, do we like this company? Do we like the leadership? Do we think they're the good guys, or do we think they're the bad guys? And, in addition to all of the security and regulatory and checks that we go through, we also kind of like just vet, is this a good partner for us? Do they have the same vibe,
Do they like spicy pickles? Yeah.
Do they like spicy pickles, or are they more of a garlic pickle kind of
like? Those garlic pickle guys with their beards, stay away.
Exactly. So, we do that, and like that provides us with some control over what tools we deploy. But we have 16 tools internally that we've approved. So we try and strike this fine balance between making sure that we're doing things safely, securely, and in a regulatory compliant way, and also enabling innovation within the company and enabling a developer who wants to try Cursor out to do that. And in fact, we have another pilot going with Cursor. I think there's about 20 people on there. We have another one, Amazon Q. We have Claude Code. So we enable people as much as possible while still doing it in a compliant, secure, and safe way.
You guys sound like a great company to work for. Are you hiring any technology people? There's lots of people listening.
Yeah, but only spicy pickle people.
Only spicy pickle people. Sorry, Joel, you failed the personality test. It's like, it's all right. It's all right. I get it.
Yeah, we're hiring. We have openings. It is a good company. It's a fun time to be in healthcare technology, because healthcare technology is one of the last, if not the last, industry to really go through this digital transformation. And we sort of have this cellular network in third world country moment right now. And if those who don't get the analogy, a third world country's kind of skipped multiple steps in the telephony process. They didn't have telephones, but they didn't create hardwired telephone infrastructure. They just skipped over that part of telephony development and went straight to cellular networks. And I think we're in the same position in healthcare tech, where we can there's a little bit of skipping of some digital transformation that can happen, because we now have AI and agentic systems, and we can drive the adoption there without some of that middle area that we have to traverse through in terms of technology modernization, which is exciting, right? Like we can move quickly, but obviously we have to do it in a safe and secure way. But it's a very exciting and dynamic industry to be in right now.
Yeah, I think you're doing a great job in such a regulated industry, still keeping it at a situation where it's fun and people can advance and they can try things. And I talk to a lot of people. I would say you're on the higher end of actually taking this head on and not drowning from it. So
I think you have to. I think, you have to go all in. And the risk of that is that, we might be wrong and the AI bubble might burst. But the risk of not going all in is that your competitors do. And it is real, and they get all the leverage out of it, and they get, they streak ahead, and you'll just never be able to catch up. It's very, very hard if you have a piece of transformational technology to catch up with people who have a head start on you, because their returns compound and they accelerate. And your returns, you're behind on that compounding and that acceleration.
That's when you got to bust out the checkbook and buy them, and that's expensive. Yeah,
it's a lot of spicy pickles.
That's too many. So I read your bio, and the most interesting part that I found was your work period of 8 months, where it was like protecting a tiny human. That is the most brilliant thing I've ever seen.
I get so many comments on that. That's why I've left it in. Like every time I interview for a role or anything, people are always like, tell me about this period of your, like, forget all of this other stuff. Tell me about this 8-month period.
I know. I don't care what you did at Amazon, Uber, or Salesforce. I want to know about this tiny human you were protecting. Were they royalty? Exactly. Was it, like, who was it?
It was my kid. It was a newborn kid. So I had this kid, and
very cool.
I had an opportunity to be a parent for a year. I was like, I'm just gonna, go and enjoy the kid and be a dad. And I put protector of tiny human, because that's basically my job, on my LinkedIn. And I was supposed to do it for a year. The idea was like 12 months, and then 8 months into it, I got a call from an ex-colleague, and ended up at Salesforce helping there. But
you were ready.
I was ready.
Yeah.
Like,
I've got 3. I can tell you. I know you were ready.
Dude, when they're early, when it's like, months, like years 1 to probably into the 3rd year, there's like, you are literally just keeping them alive. And there's like, they're cute and they smile, but they're like, and they giggle and they cry. You just like, yeah, it's crazy. I don't know. I have friends who, we have a 4 and a 6-year-old, and I have friends who have a 6-year-old, and they just had another kid. And I'm like, I feel like we're just getting over the hump a little bit at like 4 and 6. And I'm like, I don't know why. Like they would go back to the beginning.
They restarted the clock.
Yeah, exactly. You have 3?
Yeah. We have 3, 7, 5, and 2. 1 girl, she's the oldest, and then 2 boys.
Nice. I have my eldest is a boy and my youngest is a girl, and she's 4, he's 6. It's great.
It's beautiful, because then you get to experience the true differences between boys and girls, which is it's beautiful,
And it's crazy how their personalities evolve and are different. And like, you don't like it. One of my friends early on was like, oh, you can tell what the personality is going to be when they're like super young, like 1 or 2. And it's kind of true, right? Like these personality traits just carry them all the way through and develop, and they grow and evolve. It's amazing. And she's like completely different. She's like feisty, like strong-willed, super stubborn, beautiful, and like, fluffy bunnies, rainbows, unicorns. But then if she wants to be, she's a total immovable object. And then he's like, just chill, more mellow. It's kind of fun. It's fun to see the differences.
It is. It's 100%. It's an amazing thing. And honestly, I think it makes you a better leader. I think when you can watch the small humans develop, that gives you a better understanding of managing and working with people at work.
Oh yeah, totally. And then the, I always say that the collective intelligence, like, every time you add 50 people to a group of people, the collective intelligence goes down by 1 year. So, you have like a 2,000 person organization that can sometimes behave like a 6-year-old too. So it's like, it's a good, it really does teach you a lot. And I agree. It involves you as a leader.
Oh man, this is great. So look, I love the protector of tiny human thing. I'd say that's my favorite thing about you. I will never forget. You can run into me in 10 years and I'll be like, oh, protector of tiny human. As that was beautiful. I think more people should do that. Do you ever see anyone else do it?
Yeah, I mean, I see some people do it. I think the nature of work is changing a little bit, and I think roles are changing as well. I saw more people do it when we had a super buoyant tech hiring market, right? Because I think a lot of people now are kind of afraid at the end if they stop, their current job, or they go and take a sabbatical, or that like they won't be able to find another job at the tail end. So I think there's a lot of fear in the industry right now about the job market for technologists. So pre-COVID, I think it was a little bit more of a hiring, an all-you-can-eat hiring buffet, and people were doing more of that. But
you should be a little worried because things are advancing really fast. Like I'm a little worried, because it's really hard. The thing that makes me not worried, Rob, is how slow humans are to implement. I mean, we still have mainframes running out there. We have ancient technology that's still running out there. There's a lot of work to be done. And so I'm out there looking at, okay, for my day job, I get to sit here and look at the most advanced technologies in the world and talk to the most brilliant people. And I'm like, it feels like in my reality that it's here today. And it is, but there's this delay of like actually understanding it, feeling comfortable with it, and then moving a ship that has 5, 10, 100,000 employees. I mean, that just takes a lot of time, and there will be a lot of opportunity in that. So like, there's a lot of opportunity in that. If you get good at helping companies make the transition, you're set for life financially, right? Like you can get good at and keep your eyes open and work hard, and you can still make it happen. So I'm an optimistic person on it.
Yeah, I'm very optimistic. I think it's a great transformational period, and I think that people who really lean into it are going to have a lot of fun. I was playing around with some tools. I was playing around with Amazon Q at the weekend, and I felt a feeling that I hadn't felt since Twitter was launching. And I remember when Twitter launched, every software engineer had all the tools at their disposal to launch something that looked like Twitter. Like there was this amazing, incredible buzz in the technical industry and the technology industry, and people had crazy ideas. Everyone wanted to be an entrepreneur. Everyone was going to be Mark Zuckerberg, right? Like we had hackathons, like things were getting built in no time at all. And there was this creative energy in the industry about the ability to solve any problem that was thrown at you by a cool piece of technology that could take off and dominate in that space. And it's been a while since there was that level of energy in technology because of that energy, thousands and thousands of companies were created to solve thousands and thousands of problems, and many of them are now market leaders, right? Like no one's going to start another Uber today, right? Like it's just like you just wouldn't do that. But at that time you could, and people did. And I think that energy and that feeling is kind of returning to the technology industry when we see the power of AI tools and we see what you can do, and you see these agentic systems. And I see that spark of creativity in my engineering team's eyes, when they realize what the potential is here, and then they have 1,000 ideas about what they could do. And that's invigorating. Like what a great time to be alive.
It is a great time to be alive. Hey, as we start to wrap up, I am watching the time. One thing I like to get when I have these conversations with brilliant people like yourself is I like to ask them one piece of leadership advice. And here's the constraints. So one piece of leadership advice that you've heard, you implemented, and it's stuck with you through today.
I think the biggest piece of leadership advice I was ever given, I was running a program at Amazon, and it required many engineering teams to change something and do something in a different way. And I had a letter. We presented it to Jeff. We presented it to Jeff Bezos. We presented it to all of the VPs of the S team, and we got everyone's buy-in. And I had this letter, in my hand that said, everyone has to do this. And, how I used that letter is I went and sort of like beat teams over the head with it and said, like, you can't say no. Here's this letter. You're going to do things a new way. And as you can imagine, like that was pretty disastrous. And my boss pulled me aside at one point and he said, look, you can have a mandate. You can have a letter from Jeff Bezos. You can have whoever it is your CEO. But as soon as you pull it out and try and use it, it loses all of its power. And you have to go to teams and you have to tell them why this is important and convince them and bring them along for the journey. And like any of these large scale changes, you have to go to the team, meet them where they are, understand what problems they're facing, how this stacks up in their priority, and like do the hard work, even though you might have a mandate. And I think that taught me about, building movements and not using mandates, and building communities and helping people along on the journey, rather than just sort of like yelling at them and telling them like, you have to do things a new way. And that stuck with me. It's advice I give to my team all the time, when we think about change and we think about getting humans to change. Because really, the thing that humans desire least in the world is change. And you have to help them through it and help lead them through a process, rather than just trying to force them to do stuff. And that was a very empowering moment for me. I remember it very, very clearly.
Wow, that's good insight. That's good advice. I like that story. It's a powerful story. Get the letter from Jeff Bezos, beat someone over the head with it, and then realize, oh, this doesn't work. They're humans. I gotta get them sold on the story and to follow me. Yeah. That's an extreme example too, because it's like, you could use that at any other small startup. Be like, I got a letter from the CEO. It's like, great, but it's Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
The one letter that would or should work in that situation, even if you're misusing it, still didn't work. I love it. That's beautiful. Yeah. You're in, are you in New York? Is that where you're at?
I'm in Boston today.
You're in Boston.
I'm based in New York.
You're based in New York.
We have a couple of offices in Boston, so I'm up
huge
here
health community in Boston. Oh, that's one. Yeah. And Nashville too. That's where I'm at. Huge health in Nashville. Yeah.
I was just in Louisville, Kentucky.
Ooh.
I went Vegas, Louisville, Boston, New York.
Experiencing all the cultures of the country.
Exactly. Yeah. Experiencing American consumerism at its finest.
Let's do it. Well, if you're in Nashville, hit me up and I'll let you know if I'm ever around in New York. We've got family in Westchester, so we get up there about once a year. So
yeah, hit me up, man.
This is great. Well, Rob, we did it. We made a podcast. How do you feel?
I feel great. How do you feel? You feel like this is good content?
I feel good. Thank you so much for listening. And if you found this episode useful, please share it with a friend or a colleague who you think would get value from it. And if you have topics that you would like to hear discussed on the podcast, either add me on LinkedIn or send me an email, joel@moderncto.io. Every time I get an email or LinkedIn message, it absolutely makes my day and inspires me to keep going.